Hey everyone, good to have you back. I'm Dr. Schulte up here at the Drop-In Doc, and we have got a lot to cover in the way of CrossFit current events. It seems like updates come in on an hourly basis almost, so before any new breaking news can hit the interwebs, let's just go ahead and jump right in and get to it. So this week has been interesting to say the least with regards to CrossFit. Had a number of friends both within and outside of the affiliate community reach out to me and ask me WTF is going on with CrossFit. And rather than continue to write the same text message over and over, I thought it'd just be easier to make a video. So since some of you are watching are either new to CrossFit, aren't involved with CrossFit, or maybe just aren't up to speed on everything that's going on, I thought it would be best to give just a quick overview. Respective to me, I have been involved with the CrossFit community since 2011. From 2013, 2015, I helped lead the medical teams for a handful of regional events. I was a volunteer physician with the CrossFit Games for the same period of time. Altogether, have probably covered about 40 to 50 local level CrossFit events. And at the beginning of this year, I opened the Drop-In Doc, which is the world's first full service doctor's office located within a CrossFit affiliate gym. I am not a coach. I am not a gym owner. I am a CrossFit Level 2 certificate holder, and I obtained this certification as a show of dedication to the CrossFit methodology, and also to earn the trust and respect of the CrossFit community as a healthcare provider looking to integrate the CrossFit methodology into clinical practice. Greg Glassman, the now former CEO of CrossFit, launched CrossFit.com in 2001, which posted daily workouts that you could do at home in your regular gym, and you could post your scores and times on the website. This grew the virtual community to CrossFit, which then expanded to such an extent that it necessitated the formation of the affiliate program, where you, as a prospective coach and gym owner, could pay annual affiliation dues to CrossFit Inc. and be able to use their name and have access to all the inherent benefits of being an affiliated gym. It's often mistaken as a franchise, which it is not. There's no central governing authority that dictates how you run your gym, meaning you can schedule class times whenever you want, design workouts however you want, etc. And for that reason, it's known as the open source model, which really was the main contributor to CrossFit's rapid expansion and growth from roughly about 2009 to 2014. If you've been following the news, chances are more than likely you're probably aware that Greg Glassman recently made some poor comments about 10 days ago. The first one was a tweet that made light of the death of George Floyd and the events surrounding that. And then the second was a scathing email that he wrote to an affiliate owner in which he stated that her mental state had been affected by the quarantine and said that he was disgusted with her. And I'm just going to stop right there and say that this was odd all around. This was just flat out weird, because CrossFit historically has never been involved in any big political issues. It's never landed so square in the public's crosshairs like this. And even some of the recent press releases from CrossFit HQ echo this same sentiment. Glassman has a history of being a blowhard. He's been described as profane and unorthodox, but he's never had a full-blown meltdown like this. And now there's transcripts of a Zoom call that he had with multiple affiliate members in which he blathered on about conspiracy theories surrounding George Floyd's death, the COVID-19 epidemic, and so on. Based just off this scant evidence alone, there's a very strong possibility that these are worsening symptoms indicative of a legitimate psychiatric access to disorder. That's neither here nor there at this point, but I just thought from a clinical perspective it might be worth mentioning. I certainly don't mean to diminish or demean the significance of some of the social justice events that are currently going on that we're grappling with as a society right now. Respective to CrossFit, however, the events that followed Glassman's statements were indicative that there was a much bigger issue going on and that had been going on much longer than most of us, if not the entirety of us, realized. That you had hundreds of affiliates within 24 hours threatening to de-affiliate from CrossFit Inc., that you had games athletes that were withdrawing their participation and demanding that Glassman step down as CEO, that you had long-term employees like Nicole Carroll and seminar staff like Matt Chan and Julie Fouché withdraw from their positions. The CrossFit community at its core is inherently very cohesive. And if you had a leader that you believed in, that you trusted and respected, you wouldn't just bail out like this. You would come to their defense. And instead, ironically, what you saw was that everybody was cohesive in their condemnation of Greg Glassman. And then on June 12th, you had Andy Stump, a former CrossFit HQ staff member, who released a 26-minute video in which he details that working at CrossFit HQ was a tumultuous environment that Greg Glassman had surrounded himself with yes men and enablers that allowed him to sexually harass female employees for years over and over again. Here's some clips if you just want a really brief overview of what his video entailed.
So why did I quit? And the simplest answer that I can provide is that I quit because I couldn't tolerate the thought of working for Greg Glassman for a single day more. I cannot count the number of times that derogatory and specifically sexual comments were made about female staff members directly in my presence. It was an open secret as to who was potentially in the sexual crosshairs for Greg. Uncomfortable travel arrangements as for female staff members traveling with Greg, and a trip is coming up but only one hotel room is booked. Female employees sitting alone in a vehicle with the CEO being told what Greg prefers from his women. Being told from Greg that he suffers from the same thing that Tiger Woods does. And the list goes on and on and on. But there are so many of these stories to tell. And the bottom line is, they're not mine to tell. But these people deserve a platform. And the reason that they're not talking now is because of fear. My personal belief is that CrossFit was successful in spite of Greg Glassman, not because of Greg Glassman.
First off, I got to say that was an incredibly brave and selfless move on behalf of Andy. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to do that, for following your moral compass and releasing that video. It cannot overstate just how brave a move and how noble a move that was. The day prior to Andy releasing that video, a coach from Resolution CrossFit and I were sitting here in the conference room and talking about the current events, and almost simultaneously we said to ourselves, it felt like there was something bigger going on that we weren't aware of. So following Andy's video, it's validating to have our suspicions substantiated, but it really doesn't do anything to undo the harm caused to any of those staff members that worked at CrossFit HQ at that time, or the damage that's been done to the CrossFit community. The fear-based environment that Andy talks about in his video even extended to the athletes. If you spoke out against HQ or said anything even remotely disparaging, you were singled out, ostracized, and even retaliated against. So Greg Glassman's comments quickly became a vehicle by which the CrossFit community finally could gain a foothold, that they could speak with a collective voice and not have to fear reprisal. Now, the big issue that remains is that while Greg Glassman has announced his retirement and stepped down as CEO of CrossFit Inc., he purportedly still has 100% ownership in the company and is legally entitled to anything that the company brings in. So there are three things that I believe CrossFit Inc. could and should at least consider to begin the healing process and begin to start to make things right again. Item number one, find a buyer. And this has been floated by a handful of people that I've spoken to. And intuitively, it would make sense for Rogue to possibly be that buyer. Interestingly, Rogue experienced its growth from its early affiliation with CrossFit as the official supplier of hardware and equipment for the CrossFit Games and for affiliates worldwide. So now now Rogue has established itself that it doesn't need CrossFit. It's still probably a substantial portion of their business, but they've expanded their sphere of influence to so many other ancillary parts of the strength and conditioning and fitness communities that they don't necessarily need CrossFit. Although it would be a much more preferable choice as opposed to a company like Reebok coming in and purchasing the company and corporatizing it top to bottom. So if I were to put my vote on something, I would love to see what Rogue could potentially do if they were an interested party to purchase the company. Point number two, and I believe this is probably already taking place as far as discussions go, is to have a third-party investigation of CrossFit Inc. And Andy was very strategic in his video in that he even stated that he was speaking with generalities, but not to mistake that as that he didn't have specifics, that he could still provide names, dates, times, locations, and he would provide those if necessary. And I believe this puts everybody that worked at CrossFit HQ on notice, and if they are released from their non-disclosure agreements, then hopefully it can help identify where CrossFit was the most broken so that they can quickly begin to fix it. And lastly, item number three, restructure HQ from the ground up. Many athletes have already called for the formation of a board of directors, and I believe that's a great common sense approach. What's really interesting for CrossFit is that it's a multi-billion-dollar a year company that is not at all structured like a multi-billion-dollar a year company. Even just as recently as yesterday, as I was looking on Google, their Google My Business listing gives a mailing address to an address in Scotts Valley, California, but there's no contact phone number. And then on their contact us page on CrossFit.com, they have a mailing address for someplace in Washington, D.C. That's just a rudimentary example, but in light of everything else, it's clear that the old guard of CrossFit HQ needs to be removed, and it needs to be replaced with a group that is built by the community, for the community, that communicates its activities regularly and provides content of relevance. I don't even want to know how much money they wasted on that stupid Bundy living room at-home workout series. I honestly think that's probably a reflection of the influence that the enablers and the yes men had on Greg's decision-making. But those funds could have been dedicated to something far more impactful and useful. I won't get into that. That's a subject for another time. Holy smokes, that's a lot. That probably felt a little bit like this.
Okay, you ready? Yeah! Open wide!
I want to make one more point and direct it specifically to members of the CrossFit community who may be having some questions of whether or not CrossFit can survive. Greg Glassman did not create the CrossFit community. He developed, or he built the platform from which the community developed, but he did not develop the community. The community developed as a byproduct of the methodology and the affiliate program. CrossFit cannot survive without the community, and we've seen that reflected in the changes that have been demanded by the affiliate community and the athletes, and the changes that have been made up to this point. So the things I think that we can do right now that would serve the most useful and the most productive would be support each other, support your gyms, especially now as gyms are starting to now finally be able to operate after 3 months of being closed, and support the athletes that represent the sport of fitness. And in time, all these things will be a thing of the past. Anyhow, this is your Doctor of All Things CrossFit, reminding you that all the world's problems can be fixed with squats and cleans. I'm Dr. Schulte, signing off for now. See you next time.